This podcast is sponsored by nobody. Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today I have got a good one for all of you to end autumn September. I will be talking to the badass queen of martial arts herself, Cynthia Rothrock. Yeah, oh my god, remember her back in the 90s? All her movies were playing on HBO late at night. All those B martial art action movies. You know, oh my god, No Retreat, No Surrender 2, the O Brien movies, the martial law movies, Rage and Honor, Sworn to Justice, and my personal favorites, the Fast Getaway movies, where she played a villain, because Corey Haim was the star of those. I can't wait. This is going to be so cool. Yeah, I reached out to Cynthia back in June because the Hollywood show was coming up and I wanted to get her on to come and promote it, but she was super busy at that time and stuff. But now she's coming on today. We're just going to have a fun chat about her career. Yeah, I mean, she was the world champion in martial arts and forms and weapons from 1981 to 1985, and she was on the cover of all these like magazines and stuff. And I mean, she has a huge seat at the table, I should say, of the history of martial arts, and it's going to be an honor to talk to her today. Wow, the SAG-AFTRA strike is almost over. They got contract negotiations this upcoming Monday. Finally, then we can get back to normal. I am so friggin' excited about that. Yeah, I mean, it was dragging on for months. I was like, this is not going to end well, or, you know, it's going to go on all the way until next year. But finally, there's light at the end of the tunnel, you know, and I want, you know, all the actors to be compensated, and I want them to overpower AI and all that fun stuff. So I'm just very happy for them, and I'm grateful that I get to talk to actors a lot more once it's over. So yeah, here is my interview with Cynthia Rothrock. Hey Cynthia, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am just spectacular. I can't tell you what a great honor this is. Thank you so much for finally taking the time today. This is great.
I know it took us a while, but I'm glad we finally were able to connect.
Absolutely. So, going back in time, I was reading that you started doing martial arts when you were 13, but before that, were you always competing in sports and athletics?
No, not at all. I didn't compete at all, but I was very active. You know, I used to swim. I used to play baseball. You know, I did just the typical kind of kid sports that you do. Nothing really competitive, just to have fun.
Yeah, you were a true tomboy if ever there was one.
I sure was. Yeah, that actually sums it right up.
Yeah, were you taught self-defense early on?
No, not at all. Not until I started taking martial arts.
Yeah. So when was the moment that you decided you were going to start taking martial arts?
Well, a friend of mine's parents were studying Tang Soo Do, and they used to own a health club, and they would close on Sunday, and then that's when they would clean all the equipment. And my friend and I would go down, and while they were cleaning the equipment, we would just go into the big exercise room, and it was carpeted, so we would practice rolls and cartwheels, and you know, just have a fun time doing like different kind of things like that. And they came in with their uniforms on, and they started practicing, and I was like, wow, what is that? You know, and they're like, well, it's karate. They said we learn how to use our hands and feet to defend ourselves, and it intrigued me. I was very intrigued with the uniform going, I want to try that. And that's kind of how it all started. Didn't know anything about it, didn't know what it was, just like, wow, that's a fascinating concept.
And at that point, you thought to yourself, this is my destiny. I think I can make a living at this?
No, I didn't. I just said, I don't know what I'm getting into, but I'm going to try it. That came much later, that thought.
Yeah. So you're born in Delaware, raised in Scranton, Pennsylvania?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But my dad was born 4 days before you. His birthday is March 4th, 1957.
Oh, Wow. Okay. So he's like, yeah, he's a Pisces, March baby. That's cool.
My mom is a February Pisces, February 21st.
Oh, wow. You're surrounded by Pisces.
Oh, oh yes. My uncle, he's March 5th. My grandfather was also March 5th. I've had lots of Pisces in my family.
Oh my gosh. And what month were you born?
June 6th. I'm a Gemini.
Oh my gosh. My daughter's birthday is June 7th. That's
Oh,
funny.
what a trip. She's got the same day as Prince. That's so crazy. So, yeah, so after high school, what was competing in martial arts, then you decided that you were going to try that career path?
Yeah, it was actually after high school that I went into my first competition, and my instructor just put me in it, and he said, "I want you to try out competition," and I did quite well. And at that point on, I said, you know what, I'm going to really practice this and try to be the best in this sport. And from then I started competing all the time. I became number one. At that time, Karate Illustrated magazine was the biggest ratings, rating everybody in the United States into, I think, like 12 or 13 different sections. And I became number one in my section in forms and weapons. And then I went to a professional competition in New Jersey, and I met all the A-rated people that used to compete, that I used to read about, and I took first place there. And I met George Chung and the West Coast demonstration team, and they were like, you need to compete professionally. And at that point, that was my turning point, is where I was like, okay, I am going to compete in all the professional A-rated tournaments. And then I set a goal that I wanted to be undefeated in all these tournaments for 5 years, and then I was going to retire number one.
Wow, you had a plan.
I did. I had a plan then. That's when my plan started taking shape.
How long was it before you met Ernest Rothrock?
I was doing Tung Sudo martial arts, and he was doing Pai Lum, and met him, I think, actually one of our Tung Sudo students started studying Pai Lum, and I would watch them do the Pai Lum, and I'd go, wow, that's really interesting. It was really different than the Tung Sudo. The thing that attracted me was the really low stances and, the Kung Fu movement. So I liked that. So I kind of wanted to study that style as well.
Yeah, America was starting to become more aware of the art form because of Bruce Lee and Kung Fu, and of course Chuck Norris was coming onto the scene, and guys like Steve McQueen and James Coburn studied martial arts. People were starting to become aware of it by that time.
Yeah, well, at this time, Daniel K. Pai was the head of the Pai Lum system, and so he's been around a long time. I think he probably studied, with Ed Parker, way back in the day. So it was, it was something different for me, because at that time, martial arts weren't really predominant, and there weren't a lot of schools. So everything that was introduced new to me, my eyes would be wide open, like, wow, look at that. And that's how I started studying Eagle Claw Kung Fu, because I was competing in Henry Cho's tournament, which used to be a big tournament in New York City. And I met Benson Lee there, and he was doing a double-headed spear form. And I was just in awe of it. I was like, I have to learn how to do that weapon. I loved it so much, right? And he said, yeah, I study with Grandmaster Shum Leong in New York City. So he said, yeah, come over to the school. So I would drive like 2.5 hours, 3 hours to the city. I met Master Shum, and I did that for a couple of years, just going back every week, training with him in New York City, and that's how I started studying Eagle Claw Kung Fu.
Yeah, what was the inclusivity level like towards women in martial arts in those days? Was it good? Was it okay?
Well, it was kind of unknown mostly. I remember back at that time when I competed in women's division, they never had, we're talking back when I first started, they didn't have any ranks. It was women, white belt to grandmaster, whatever. Everybody was thrown all in one rank. And I just remember, like going to Alaska, and I was teaching a seminar there, and the women come up to me and said, oh, you're wearing lipstick. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, can you wear lipstick while you're training? training, and I was like, well, why not? What does that have to do with it? So there was at that time it was still a pretty strong fallacy that martial arts were a man's sport. It weren't really for women, that women weren't strong enough or tough enough to do it. And I feel like being a trailblazer in that era, that I opened the doors for a lot of women through my competitions and through my movies to get involved in martial arts, and change the idea that no, it doesn't matter as long as you know technique. You can defend yourself whether you're a man or a woman.
Yeah. Oh, I wrestled in high school. I was 275, and we had one girl on the team. She was probably 140. I'm still good friends with her to this day. And even she pinned me to the mat because she was that tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. It don't matter what size you are, really. It's just the skill set.
Yeah, exactly. And back in the day, the training was much different than it is today. That was old school. The instructors weren't in it for a business. They were in it as a part-time. They all had jobs in the day, and this was their hobby at night. And if you weren't tough enough to hang in there, they didn't want you there. And I remember my instructors saying, when if someone comes in that they don't really want or feel that they're part of their team, that they would beat them up and go home. And I remember when I was testing for my black belt, 3 Koreans came in. And I'd never forget, it was Master Chung In Tang and Master Chang and Master Yi. And they came in 3 weeks before I was going to test for black belt. And they said to my teacher, Frank Chernovich, they says, your students are good, but they don't know how to fight. So for 3 weeks, all they worked on was fighting. And they would say, throw a spinning wheel kick, and your foot was swept right out, down on the floor. They didn't care that I was a girl. They just beat the heck out of me. And I would go home crawling with bruises, and my mom would be like, for the first time, my mom's like, I think you should quit, right? And I'm like, no. And I said to my instructor, I said, because I remember him saying that, I said, are you trying to get rid of me? And it's like, no, they're just being tough on everybody, which was a great training for me, because since that point on, I wasn't afraid to spar another woman again, because I was like, or a man, I was like, they're not going to hurt me as much as these Koreans did.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, so 1981 and 1985, you're the world champion in martial arts forms and weapons. You're on the cover of all these magazines like Black Belt and Karate Illustrated. Were you surprised at the success you got?
Well, I was surprised at being the first woman on the cover of Karate Illustrated magazine. That was a surprise for me.
Yeah.
Was my first cover, and I remember Renato Bardin was the editor, and he had a fight for me to get on the cover because, the owner of the magazine said, no, women and minorities don't sell, and he fought and fought and fought, and finally he got me on the cover, and I was surprised on that, but I was very excited because that was a big thing for me to be on the cover of a magazine. I just never forget how honored I was, and I felt so elated that I was the first woman on the cover, hopefully opening up doors for other women to be on the cover. But unfortunately, even till today, there's not. You get the number of women that are on the cover of karate magazines is very minute still.
Yeah, that's so cool. You were the first one. You had a couple martial arts schools in Los Gatos, including one that burned down in 1986. What happened? Was it like arson?
Well, you know what? It was interesting because at that time I had a studio with George Chung, America's Best. Mm-hmm. And that's when in 1985, I went over to Hong Kong to shoot my first movie with Michelle Yeoh. That was called Yes, Madam.
Yeah.
And that took 7.5 months. And while I was shooting that movie in Hong Kong, the studio burned down.
Wow.
So I think it was just a fire, that happened. And, I lost all my weapons, all my uniforms, all my trophies that were in there.
Oh.
So it was I remember it was probably a very hard day for me on set. And then the next day, my George called me and said my dog died. So I just remember, oh, I was such a wreck, with the studio bad enough, but then the next day my dog died, and I was just, I remember I was just trying to hold it together and do a fight scene during Yes, Madam. And actually, that's the first time I've ever told anybody that. I have never told anybody that story because nobody's ever asked about the fire.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm born and raised in San Mateo, so I know Los Gatos very, very well, and it's such a beautiful community. And like, were you living out there or something?
Yeah, I was. I was living there. George and I had the school. I was training with the West Coast demonstration team. So, yeah, it wasn't until 1988 I moved from Los Gatos down to Los Angeles.
Wow, yeah, that must have been hard on you financially, though, when that place burned.
Yeah, but like I said, it was that wasn't really on my mind. It was the things that was irreplaceable to me that really, tugged at my heart.
Yeah, and also too, rent was a little bit cheaper back then. When you could, rent a studio to have a business.
Right.
Now it's crazy. It's super crazy.
Yeah. And even for back in that day, we had so many students, and we had a lot of women too, which was surprising. I remember having, I think, over 35 women, which was for back in that day, a lot.
So how does acting come to you with Yes, Madam?
How does acting come to me?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't really know what to expect. When I went to Hong Kong, all I could think of is like, oh, I'm thinking of Enter the Dragon, like, getting on the airplane, going in over the little dinghy ships and going to Hans Island. I mean, I actually had a big different concept of what was really happening. I thought, since I was familiar with Hong Kong movies, it was going to be a period film. I thought I was going to be dressed in Chinese clothing. I'm thinking, well, what are they going to do? Are they going to put long black braids on me and put razor blades in my braids, and I'd go swinging my head around, like, I'm thinking of the old Kung Fu movies I saw. And when I got there, they put me in a Holiday Inn, and they said, no, your character is going to be Cindy. You're a cop from England. So it was totally, totally different than what I even anticipated it was going to be. So I was like, oh, okay, great. And then when I got to set, nobody spoke English except Michelle Yeoh. She's the only one that spoke English. And basically, I never really knew what I was doing because there's never a script, and they would tell me, what to say, like right before I was going to do it, or sometimes I didn't even know what the scene was until I saw the movie after it was finished, like completely what was going on.
But did you get this acting bug, or did you think that was going to be your only movie?
I thought I thought that was going to be my only movie. I thought, wow, this is exciting. This is a new, something new I'm doing. It's in my life. I'm doing a movie, and I kept thinking the weirdest thing is that maybe I'll be on the poster, and someday when I have kids, I could say, look, your mom was in a movie. I really thought it was just going to be one movie, and that was it. And that movie took 8.5 months to shoot, right?
Yeah.
And so it's quite a long time. And when that came out, which it came out soon after we finished, Golden Harvest knew that they were going to have that was going to be a big hit, and actually that film was with DMB Films, but that was Michelle Yeoh's husband at the time, Dixon Poon, that owned that company.
Right.
And Golden Harvest signed me up right away, right as soon as that was finished, saying, we want to do a 3-picture deal with you. So then at that point, I thought, you know what, in 1985, it was my last year of competition. I was already number one. I wasn't going to compete anymore because I thought, competing over these hundreds and hundreds of times in these 5 years and being undefeated, I wanted to quit at number one. I wanted to leave number one. I thought it's a record that it's going to be very hard for someone to beat. And what am I going to do now? And then all of a sudden I get a 3-picture deal contract with Golden Harvest. So I okay, I know what I'm going to do now. I'm going to do movies.
Yeah. So and Corey Yoon, he then directs you in No Retreat, No Surrender 2. I love the first one. Second one, I think is okay. I talked to Keith Strandberg, about both movies, and he told me about how Kurt McKinney and Jean-Claude Van Damme were actually scheduled to be in the second one, but as different characters, but that didn't happen. How was working with Lord Avedon and Max Steyer?
Well, it was interesting because Kurt was supposed to play Lauren Avedon's part, right? And Jean-Claude Van Damme was supposed to play Matthias's part. And if you look at it, it really had nothing to do with the continuation of the first one. It was a totally different movie.
Right.
But, according to Hong Kong standards, it doesn't matter. It's just going to be a sequel with these same casts. And we didn't know until we got to set, actually, when they introduced Lauren to me, because Kurt and Jean-Claude Van Damme backed out right at the last minute. And how Lauren got the part is Corey Yoon called up June Chung's school and he said, hey, Lauren answered the phone. He goes, I need someone that could do martial arts, can leave for Thailand within the next day or two. And Lauren said, I can. And that's how we got the part. So none of us, even Corey Yoon, didn't even know that they changed the character part. So when Corey Yoon introduced me to Lauren, he introduced me as the name of the character. And I thought Lauren was Kurt McKinney. Yeah. And I remember looking at Lauren going, oh my gosh, because I watched the first one. I was like, how could someone look, I'm thinking he's Kurt McKinney. I'm like, how could someone look so different on film and in real life? And then they told us they changed. And then I remember the director was really upset, because, Jean-Claude was supposed to play Matthias's part. And at that time, Matthias wasn't really a martial artist. So he really didn't know too much fighting then. So he looked the part and he was great, but he didn't really have, the fighting background at that time. So it was kind of a crazy shoot for all of us. They had we shot it in Thailand and they had an American crew, a Thai crew, and a Chinese crew. Wow. And it seemed like the Chinese crew and the Thai crew did not get along, and there were arguments and there were fights, and it was kind of a rough set, but luckily we finished, and I like that movie. I actually do like that one.
Mm-hmm. And then, speaking of Enter the Dragon, you got to be directed by the legendary Robert Klaus of Enter the Dragon on the China O'Brien movies. Yeah, Enter the Dragon is one of my favorite movies of all time. You must have been awestruck working with him.
Yeah, I was, because we all knew. I think even Return of the Dragon already came out by that time, and we were like, oh my gosh, Robert Klaus. And it was funny because, he was such an icon just for directing those movies. He became so popular. And I remember Golden Harvest sent a small crew, to work on the choreography. And their vision was different than Robert Klaus's. And Robert Klaus was like, no, I'm doing it Bruce Lee style. We got to do it this way. And Golden Harvest people wanted to do it a different way. So I remember it was a bizarre set. But, we shot the two of them, China O'Brien 1 and 2, at the same time. So within 6 weeks, we shot those two movies. So Robert Klaus would be like, we're in the office doing China O'Brien 1, and he'd go, let's just do a scene from China O'Brien 2, since we're here in the office. And we go, but we didn't even look at that scene. It wasn't on the list. We haven't studied it. It doesn't matter. Let's just do it. So we had a lot of things like that, one of the things I would love to do is to do a China O'Brien now, like again with Richard Norton and Keith Cook, I think it would be so awesome. It's really hard to get the rights now because it's passed down to so many hands. But at that point, we really didn't know too much about acting, and just, like I said, we never had it was kind of like a little bit like Hong Kong style, but you're doing it in English, so you can't mess up. Like in Hong Kong, you're saying in Hong Kong they film with no sound and you're all dubbed, so you can mess up. Nobody's even going to know, but not in English. You can't do that.
Yeah, this is the first time you got injured on set. You broke your finger or something?
Well, I got injured in Hong Kong on Yes Madam many times, but it's the first time I broke a bone. Yes, with my finger.
Oh God, that's gotta hurt. So I'm up.
And and it's funny because if you look at it, I think I don't even remember, because it's all one movie to me if it was China O'Brien 1 or 2. But there's a scene where I'm on the stage and I'm fighting the guy with the cord from the microphone, and you could see on my finger there's a splint, because I couldn't bend it because they put a splint on it. So some scenes it's in and some it isn't.
Yeah, I've seen tricks like that in other movies as well. So I'm a big fan of the martial law movies. I think Billy is a great character. She's like part Girl Friday, part equal coexisting hero, and very sexy and has a great sense of humor. That must have been a fun character to play.
Yeah, again, that was my actually my first movie with an American company.
Uh-huh.
That I did, and it was pretty epic for me because I was David Carradine was in it, and I knew
Yeah.
David Carradine from Kung Fu, so I was like, oh my gosh, wow, that's so awesome. But yeah, that was it was really fun, playing the cop, and it was interesting because one, I worked with Chad McQueen.
Mm-hmm.
And then in two, it was the same character, but they changed Chad to Jeff Wincott.
Yeah. And McQueen, he didn't want to return for the sequel.
I don't know what happened between there was some kind of disconnection between him and the producers, so I'm not really sure what all went down. I just know that they hired the other guy to do it instead of Chad.
And there was an incident where you accidentally hit a guy in the groin with a baseball bat or something.
Oh, yeah, I did. That was on the first one. What happened is, I'm still kind of new. This is my first, American movie, really.
Yeah.
Golden Harvest still did China O'Brien. And I was fighting, and they didn't have any stunt guys. And this is the problem with films when they don't hire the right people. They just got a camera crew guy and said, okay, you fight her, right? So they didn't know anything about stunts to react. And I was fighting a couple people at the time, and I fought the one guy, and he had a jacket on, and it was open. And the zipper came and caught me right in the eye while I'm fighting. So I get hit in the eye with the zipper. I can't see. I don't even know, am I going to go blind? What's wrong with my eye? But I didn't want to stop, and I wanted to continue the fight. So I turn around, and then I had to hit the guy in the groin with the bat. He was supposed to have a cup on. They didn't have a cup on set, and I hit him. And he was not a happy camper. I felt so bad. But he ended up being fine. He was fine. But,
Yeah.
You got to prepare for that, have cups on, and plus the fact that I couldn't see, because my eye got hit with the zipper. Yeah. So, but, that's all part of doing action movies. You got to realize there's going to be little things here and there that's going to happen, and you just got to, tough it up and push through it.
Then you make a leap to action comedy with the Fast Getaway movies. When I was growing up, oh my God, Fast Getaway was on all the cable networks, HBO, Showtime, Cinemax. It was always on, and I used to watch it every time because I love Corey Haim, and I've interviewed his sister. She's become a friend of mine and stuff. And I just love this. How did you get this role? Because you're playing a villain in this.
Yeah, I think, at that time, I was very popular for distributors. They knew my movies made a lot of money. So Cinetel, who put the movie on, just contacted me and said, we'd love for you to star in this movie. And I read the script, and I knew of Corey Haim, and I was like, yeah, awesome. So I just, just said, yeah, I'm gonna do it. So that's just how that came about, is, them contacting me and reading the script, liking it, and signing on to it.
Well, you made her very tongue-in-cheek and likable as a villain. You got to show your comedy side, and you got to be cartoony when you were doing your kicks and everything, like when you're kicking Leo Rossi's ass in the barn in the first 10 minutes of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I recall. I remember I loved the scene where they had me fighting the clothes in the closet and the furniture around the room. That was a great scene. I love that.
Yeah, or the that hilarious sex scene with you and Ken Lerner. You're like, "Come on, my stallion."
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, that was a little crazy for me at that time to do that, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, it all worked out. It's funny. I just saw Kenny not that long ago at an autograph show we were both appearing at, and it was so good to see him because I haven't seen him since the Fast Getaway days.
I almost interviewed him not too long ago. I was conversating with his wife back and forth in Messenger, and I don't know, she gave me kind of a weird vibe, so I just decided not to go forward with it. It was kind of weird. Yeah, it happens sometimes. But yeah, so did you and Corey become like a brother and sister? Did you become close?
Yeah, he was kind of like a little brother to me, you know. He was the pro though. He was the seasoned pro, and I'm still like kind of like the newcomer. So he'd give me a lot of like little hints on acting. And I remember, you know, this one time. We had this scene and I had heels on and I had to kick him in the chest and I asked him to put a pad on and he wouldn't do it. He's like, no, I'm tough. I could do it. And I said, no, I said, please put a pad on because I have a heel on, a high heel, and that little pointy spike, even if I just tap you with it, it's going to hurt, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he wouldn't put a pad on. So I was like, all right. So I did it, tapped him, and he's like, yeah, I'm fine. Everything's good. So the next day I come to set, and there was an assistant producer there, and she's all mad at me. And I'm like, what? She goes, well, we're not shooting today. Well, why not? Because you punctured Corey Haim's lung. I said, what? Come on, I did not puncture his lung, right? She goes, he had to go to the hospital and we can't shoot today, right? Now I'm like, what the heck's going on? He was fine. I didn't hit him that hard. So I go back and I go and I see him. And at that time, they had those big boom boxes, you know, remember? It was like, you know, whatever you play music from. And he's dancing. And I'm like, Corey, what's going on? And he goes, what? I go, they said I punctured your lung. He goes, no, I was fine. He goes, I just told them that because I didn't want to work today. I was like, well, you got me in trouble. You know, and I'm like, you better tell them you said that. So he was like a little bit of a rascal sometimes on set.
Yeah, and that great line, what's this business about me dying a virgin? Was the second one just as fun to make?
Yeah, it was. It was because we all knew each other, you know, and it totally was. They were a lot of fun to work with. I love working with Leo too. Leo's a great guy.
Mm-hmm. And, Sarah Buxton was in the second one. I think she's like a country singer now or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Was there ever talk about doing a Fast Getaway 3?
No, I don't think so. I don't remember them ever, you know, talking about doing a third because then I think, yeah, I don't know what happened. I know it was very close to becoming a theatrical.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember them saying that it all depend on, they sent Corey to Indiana to do a Q&A, and they were going to base it on if it went well there, they were going to go theatrical, right? Because it was Indiana. And if it didn't, it wasn't. And Corey went, and they said he had black hair. He was very goth. He was totally not the character. He was like the nice boy or whatever. And it kind of bombed. And so that's why it didn't get a theatrical. But I think maybe Citadel wasn't happy back then at that because it would have got a theatrical. You know, they probably would have made a lot more money. Yeah. But I don't know. Yeah, you know, who know? You don't know. I don't know. I'm only the actor, so I don't know what goes on behind the scenes with other people.
Yeah, because I noticed that all your sequels stop at 2. You know.
Yeah.
And then you worked with 2 Terrys I've interviewed, Terry Winkless and Terry Treese on Rage and Honor.
Yeah.
How was that production?
Yeah, Rage and Honor was great. You know, I loved it because, you know, I was working with Richard Norton, and he was a good friend of mine at that time. You know, and the first one we shot in L.A., which was great. And then the second one in Indonesia, right, which was fun, you know, being out of the country to do it as well. So, you know, I have to say all the movies I shot, I don't really, well, most of them, let me say, there's a few out there that I regret, kind of, in a way, but it is what it is. And sometimes, you know, as an actor, you only can read the script and you don't know how it's going to turn out. You don't know how the other people are. You don't know how it's going to get directed. You don't know how the lighting is. You don't know how the fight scenes are going to go. You just go in and hope for the best. And sometimes it doesn't turn out for the best. And that's kind of why I decided, you know, I want to do my own movie, Black Creek, because I want to make sure that, like, I've been in movies, you know, where the fight scene is like, oh, this ending fight scene is going to be so climactic and it's going to be so great, the choreography, and you get to it because we have 20 minutes to shoot the whole thing. You're like, what happened? That it's going to be great, and you're going to take the time and shoot the fight scenes. It's like, you know, so that was actually one of the main reasons why I decided I want to do my own film, is so I can control that. Or sometimes, like, the lighting is terrible, you know, and I want no, everybody's, you got to have good lighting, you know, you have to have this, you have to have, you know, so. Yeah, some of them I could say, cut that off my resume.
Oh, okay. If I mention any of those, let me know.
I will.
That was the first time you worked with Catherine Bach, right? You,
Yes, it was. Yes, actually, Catherine is a great friend of mine.
mhm.
We did martial law, and then we did the reunion of the Dukes of Hazzard.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, I wanted to get her in Black Creek, but it conflicted with something else that she was going to do. Otherwise, she was going to play one of the characters in Black Creek.
My buddy Scott the Icon, the Helmrist, he had you on his show, Attitude Era Live, and he told me just before we started, mention the Dukes of Hazzard reunion movie.
Oh yeah, that was fun. I kind of at first felt like the outsider because it was the reunion. They all came together, and
Yeah.
I think they said one of the cast members passed away. So at the reunion, they said let's just, or at the funeral, they said let's just do a reunion movie. So that's how that kind of came about. So they all knew each other. So it's a little hard being the new person on the set. But everybody was so nice, and that's how I really, became friends with Catherine then, because we got to, talk a lot more and hang out more. And it was just fun. The thing I remember about that one is it was the first time I ever went to a studio set every single day. So every time you shot, it was in a different location. We were on studio every day. And that was actually fun for me to do that.
I remember the night that it premiered on CBS. We were all anticipating it because, grew up watching the Dukes of Hazzard and syndication, and we're like, "Oh wow, they're doing a reunion movie. It's so cool." Yeah, I thought it was a cool TV movie, and then they made another one in 2000.
Yeah, I don't remember what year it was that I did it, but
97.
Yeah, I was going to say, around 97. Yeah, because in 99 I was pregnant. I had my daughter.
How about Eye for an Eye? You had a tiny part in that.
Yeah, that was just a small part. Basically, let me think about that. I think Molly Finn was the casting director, and I met her from something before, and she called me in for this, and it was just a small part, and I met with the director, and I had to audition with him just, for this small part, but I got cast, but then they also cast me as a martial art consultant as well, so I was there the one day, but I was also there, when Sally Field was doing her fighting as well.
Yeah, that's got to be a highlight to be directed by John Schlesinger, who made Midnight Cowboy and Marathon Man and so many great movies.
Yeah, I remember it was like a little stressful for me because after I remember, the choreographer, I think he wasn't really happy with me coming in as a consultant because I think he felt, oh, I could do it. Why are you hiring someone to do that? And I remember he set something up for Sally Field, and the choreography was a spinning back kick. Now, Sally Field wasn't a martial artist in this. She just learned some self-defense, and she couldn't do the spinning back kick. So imagine this. You're trying to do a spinning back kick, and you're hopping like about 6 times, and then you throw a funny kick. Right? I was like, that doesn't work. And I told her, I said, no, you know what? Just kick the guy in the groin. And she said, well, the stunt coordinator said that's not going to hurt. What? You kicking the guy in the groin is not going to hurt the guy's groin? And I was like, and then I remember, so I'm trying to help her with this spinning kick because she wanted to do the spinning kick. And I remember John Schlesinger going, Cynthia, get in there and help her. And I'm like going, oh my God, she shouldn't be doing it. I think they ended up doing like a front kick to the face, which was kind of flaky, right? Mm-hmm. But whatever I would say, I remember the stunt coordinator would like, it would be, no, groin kicks don't work, whatever, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I remember Sally got mad at something, and she was in the trailer. And now remember, I'm working with an A-listed actress here, and it's the first time I'm working not as an actor, but I'm working as a coordinator. And I remember John Schlesinger yelling out, going, if she doesn't come out, I'm putting Cynthia in that part, and I'm like, oh my God, now she's going to hate me even more. You know what I mean? It was so stressful. And I remember after that, I was like, I'm sticking to being an actor.
How about Sworn to Justice?
Sworn to Justice was a turnover movie for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was a different type of movie. It was, it wasn't like the typical ones, like the cop, the buddy, helping out the guy. It was like she's the lead and she's the definite, main star. Yeah, she
Yeah.
doesn't need a guy to come in and help her out. Like in the martial law, it'd be like I'd fight the guys, but then the bad guys, then the other cop, the partner would come in and finish them off. I couldn't do
Yeah.
that. So it was a good role for me as far as acting, and then it had a little bit of sexy scenes in it, which was different for me too. And I was like, oh, okay, I have to get out of my comfort zone. But I remember I just loved working with Brad Dourif. He was so awesome to work with, and Walter Koenig worked with, and it was just like it was a whole different atmosphere for me. And we did, like, first time in my life, we did costume, wardrobe, screen testing, makeup testing, and I was like, wow, someone is finally taking in notice of, making sure you look good, you got the right makeup, the hair. Where in the past I felt like nobody ever cared. It's just like, get in there and shoot, doesn't matter what you look like. People are only looking at you fight anyway. So it was, when people say to me, what's one of your favorite movies, that definitely is one, that I would tell people to watch.
Yeah, and then you guest starred on Hercules: the Legendary Journeys.
Mm-hmm. That was fun too. Yep, they called and they said, we want you to go on work with Kevin Sorbo. And I'm like, who's Kevin Sorbo? I didn't want to ask, but I was like, okay, great. And then I remember, who's Kevin Sorbo? He plays Hercules. Oh, I better watch an episode, to see it. And that was really, really fun for me because it was kind of like like a cartoon character coming in, and Kevin was great to work with. He was one of the few actors that I've worked with that was like, yeah, kick my butt. Yeah, anything you want to do. I just want you to look good. He had no ego, he didn't care. He's like, just do it. Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. And I loved working with him on that.
Yeah, around that same time, Highlander and Xena was also on and stuff. Were you ever asked to do those shows?
No, just Hercules. But they made it where, I was going to come back on Hercules, because he ends up, he doesn't really kill me because I turn into smoke and I go up and back up to Hera, into the air. So there was a plan to have that character reoccur. But what happened then is not long after, Kevin got sick, and then eventually that's when the series kind of ended because he was having some major health problems then.
Oh. So when the action movies went from home video to the advent of DVD and video on demand and all that stuff, were you worried that your career was over?
No, I was never worried my career was over. During that time, in 99, like I said, I had my daughter, so I pretty much only did 2 or 3 films in 10 years because I was turning down things because people are like, yeah, you want to go to Indonesia, you want to go to Hong Kong, you want to go here. And I was like, no, I don't. I have a little baby and I have to be here and be mom, and I can't do that. And I remember when my daughter was 3, we did, what was that movie called? Beyond something? Was it Beyond Justice?
It was a kung fu movie.
It was the one we shot in Puerto Rico.
Let's see. Oh, Beyond the Game.
Is that what it's called? Okay.
Yeah.
Beyond the Game. But okay, yeah.
Yeah.
It had a different title. I think it was called Beyond Justice or something like that at first. But that was like a trial for me because my daughter at that time was 3, I think, and I took her with me to Puerto Rico, and my mom came and she watched her, and that was a test for me to say, can I go away and do movies, right? But then when my daughter turned 5, I couldn't pull her out of school. So pretty much for those 10 years, I kind of step back, from filming because, I'd only film if it was shot in LA, so I didn't have to go anywhere. And then when I came back, the whole industry kind of changed, and then it was almost kind of starting over again, because the whole, everything kind of changed, so.
Yeah, but now you're back. I see you're making movies again, and that is just so friggin' awesome. Are you working on a memoir?
No, but one of the things I want to do is a biography. That's in my list to do, like a documentary. And, it's not your typical biography that I'm thinking of, like, where people just come in and talk about you. It's going to be a whole different kind of concept I have. So I have that. And I actually shot a couple movies this year. I just came off one called Lady Scorpions that I think is going to be awesome. That is to come out. And I did a one-day cameo in Van Damme's new movie, Dark Man, I think it's called. I did that. Now and next month, October 30th, we start shooting my film, Black Creek. So from now till then, it's 100% focus on, getting that together. And, it's first time I'm producer, one of the writers and the actors. So it's a lot on my table this time, and a lot of stress, a lot of excitement because, this is my vision of the movie I wanted to do, who I want to be in it, what the components are. So, I'm excited and nervous at the same time.
That's awesome. And how was the Hollywood show back in June? Did you have a good turnout?
Yeah, I did. I had a better turnout, though. I was in the London Comic-Con with Chuck Norris and Scott Adkins, and that was epic. We had 12,000 people come through on just Saturday only. It was epic. For 4 days, I was nonstop talking and writing. I couldn't talk after I got out of there. I was so exhausted, but it was such a fun event to see all the fans, and they had the greatest action lineup. Like I was there all the time. Chuck was there Saturday, Sunday, and I think Scott was just there on Sunday.
Yeah, I never thought I'd see the day that martial arts would make its way to the Comic-Cons. That's so cool.
I know, right? And the funny thing is that the audience kind of crosses over, so people that like comics also like action as well, and vice versa.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're all genre nerds. So real quick, it's time to play my secret silly game. This is a series of silly slumber party questions. No win or lose. It's just pure fun. And how the game works is I ask you the question, you answer it, and then you ask me the exact same question and I answer it. And feel free to comment on answers because they might be funny.
Okay.
Cynthia, are you ticklish?
In spots, yes. Are you ticklish?
Oh, yes. And like you, if someone tickles me without warning, I might hit them in the groin.
Well, it's a good thing I don't do that. I'd be putting them out again, send them to the hospital like the guy in martial law.
Is your belly button an innie or an outie?
My belly button is an innie. What is your belly button?
It is also an innie.
Yeah, good. Because I prefer an innie than an outie.
I like both, but, to each their own.
Okay.
What color are your toenails painted?
My toenails right now are pink. What color are your toenails painted?
Right now they're not, but last time they were purple lavender.
Oh, okay. Well, you should try pink. Pink is cool.
Oh, I do pink occasionally. Yeah, I like to go bright colors, and make them a little shiny and sparkly and stuff.
Yeah, awesome.
What would you say is your best personality trait?
My best personality trait is that I'm a positive person. What is your best personality trait?
Well, being a Gemini, I have empathy and I have no filter.
Okay, cool.
It's my counterbalance.
Well, I think I like it when people have no filter because they say what they really mean and, they don't care. That's cool.
Fuck yeah. And then my favorite question, is there a stinky smell that just makes you gag?
There are a lot of stinky smells that make me gag. Okay. I guess if I go into a dirty restroom, that makes me gag, like a porta potty. Are there any stinky smells that make you gag?
Yeah, farts or feet.
Well, that's close to a porta potty.
Yeah. By the way, Cynthia, your feet are amazing. I mean, considering how many people you've kicked in the face, they hold up.
Well, yeah. I think there's a foot page, and I think I have a 5 out of 5. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cynthia,
I
you
get a lot of pedicure.
yeah, you got it, I guess. Cynthia, you are an amazing inspiration. Thank you so much for finally coming on and doing this. It was a lot of fun. I hope I get to meet you in person at an autograph show in the future. And my biggest achievement today is I'm glad I didn't bring up any movies you didn't want to talk about.
You didn't. Isn't that funny? You know why? Because you know which ones are good. That's why.
Oh, that means a lot coming from you. I appreciate that.
All right. Well, thanks so much. Yes, looking forward to meeting you someday. And send me this link and I will post it on social media.
Oh, I would love that. Thank you so much. Have a great day and be safe.
Okay, you too.
Thank you. Bye
Bye.
bye. Well, there you have it. Cynthia Rothrock. Ain't she a sweetheart? Oh my God, she is an awesome, awesome lady of integrity. I'm so glad that we finally got to talk today. I really, really like her. And I'm so glad I didn't offend her. I didn't ask her about movies she didn't want to talk about. Oh, I guess I do have great taste in all movies. Not just the Kung Fu ones, but all of them. Well, until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes.